Well, Damien was right, my coworker. This rack, the gear is broke as hell. You can see that it spins freely, no good. This whole thing is supposed to be down and then like that, spring loaded. Even if this wasn't the problem, something's happened to get that to spin freely without engaging. So we're going to go take this whole thing apart. First step to taking apart this part of the rack is to go ahead and pull this up and off. Next thing we're going to do is take a Phillips head screwdriver and take out this screw, and the one down in there, and remove this whole rod. This whole rod in here is going. Alright, the screws are out now. I went ahead and did that off camera because I needed both hands to do it well. You can see where the screws were. There's these little black holders, the black plastic there. That whole thing will now just twist up and off at each of those, and this comes out. So we're going to set that aside. I'm probably going, if I can focus the camera, of course it won't, but this gear is beat up pretty good on the teeth there. So I'm going to replace that. Now when you do on this, you can just pop that straight up and off. And there's a little metal bar inside that you got to be careful not to lose. I'll pick that up here in a minute. But I'm not worried about losing the broken gear, but this little metal rod right there is completely loose and nothing holds it in place but that gear. So once you take it off, you got to be careful not to lose that metal piece. I don't have any replacements of those in the store at the moment, so be careful not to lose that. The rest of this can just stay the way it is. The rest of those gears are in good shape. The gears that those engage are in good shape, so I don't need to replace any of those. I am going to have to replace this unit though. So the next step of that is to take off this metal ring here. This metal ring right here, this little C-clamp, which is slid up out of place. It was forced up at some point, but that should be way down lower. So I've got a special tool just for loosening these. I used to do it with a pair of screwdrivers and bent the hell out of a bunch of them trying to get them to go good. So I went to an auto parts store and bought the right kind of spanner to separate that. So we're going to get that off next. Tool. Put it in the holes. Squeeze and lift. And that can come up and off. This whole thing here slides up and off. I'm going to check the teeth on this gear. If they're good, we can leave it and put it on the next one of these big white pieces, because this whole thing, the black and white bit here, is all one unit when you buy it as a part. This whole spring-loaded thing, the broken bit there, all one unit. And when I put it back on, I won't need to get separate parts of it. Might save that big spring just for the hell of it. But if this gear is looking good, which it is, then we'll reuse this gear, and it just pops straight off. And I am not a great cameraman when it comes to video. I'm not going to be able to do this one-handed. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and stop the video, take off this gear just by popping it straight off with both hands, and go grab a new one of these whole pieces to get on. Alright. We keep a handful of these new ones on hand just for days like this morning. Has two little flat sides here that match up with the flat sides on the gear. Just pop that back on. These gears don't actually have a front and a back, so it doesn't matter which way it's facing when you pop it in. What I think happened on the last bit was that this C-clamp here came loose and allowed everything to pop up, but on top of that, it doesn't look where the C-clamp fits in. That little slot that it goes in didn't look like it was in good shape. And that should spin freely now, that's normal because there's no gears for it to engage with at the moment. So I'm going to go ahead and get this metal spacer back on here. And then this C-clamp will fit down in that little collar, that little gap there. You know, that's still kind of loose, and it's bent to all hell, probably from back when I was still using screwdrivers to do this. So I'm going to go get a fresh C-clamp to slide into that little collar instead to protect it. It might be bent up from when I put them on using the wrong tools, or it might be bent up because it was forced up when the other C-clamp down here broke off. But we're going to get that fixed, so I'm going to stop the video again. Yep, part number blah 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 H5130 whatever. Whole package there of the snap rings that we use, the C-clamp rings or whatever you want to call them. This one's not bent all to hell, brand new. We'll get that one on there. Before we get it on, comparison. Old one, new one. Alright, got it loaded on the tool again. A little bit of pressure to open the spring up just enough. Down into place. Oh, that's so good. That's so much better than it is the old-fashioned way. Doing it right. Alrighty. Next step is to get the gear on here, which is just pushing it in place. Alrighty. That lined up there. New gear. And we'll get see what I mean about that falling right out, that little pin? That's no good. And you can see there where there's a slot in the gear for the pin to sit. Hold each other in place. Get that back there. I'm trying to tilt it so you can see that slot while I was putting them on and let that pin fall straight out. There you go. That's in place now, new gear. New carb hope up. Under the rubber gasket. Then the next tricky bit is on each of these little cleats that the screws go in. You get this little lip under that little hoop there that it goes in and get them to lay flat, which isn't hard, but you got to get all three of them on there. And I've got fat fingers that are hard to fit into that tiny space. So again, I'm going to turn it off and do this without you looking. But it's something you can figure out on your own, I am sure. Alright, those are all locked back in now. You always just slide these into place wherever they need to be so that the gears line up with their correct gears. Now we're just going to put those screws back in where they belong. And of course it's awkward because I'm trying to hold a camera and screwdriver at the same time and doing a bad job of both. There we go. Line that up right. There we are. Screw. Fast pan, I know, it's bad. It's against the rules of video. This is why I don't have my own YouTube channel, people. Focus. Actually, that's a lie. I do have my own YouTube channel. That's probably where this will end out. But it's not like a popular channel or anything like that. There we are. Last one goes right in there. Oh yes, see my patterned shirt today, yes. Should have worn a crappy shirt. I knew I was coming in and messing with chemicals. Not really chemicals, but chemical-y stuff. I did wear gloves when I pulled the rack out and I rinsed it off with water before I started working. But working with little tiny bits with gloves on, just a pain in my butt, and I don't do it. I know technically for safety reasons I'm supposed to, but the rack's clean enough and I'm not allergic to the chemicals. I've been doing this for about 15 years total now, and I've never had any kind of allergic reaction to the chemicals, so I'm not worried about contact dermatitis myself. I still take some safety precautions, but I'm not going to impede my progress just to have gloves on when I don't really need them. So just slip this back into place. And yes, this gasket could probably stand to be replaced, but we don't currently have any more in. We're going to order some, but it's getting old. It's still fine. It's doing its job just fine, and it's not a hugely important piece, but it is doing its job, and it'll work for the time being until we get the new ones in. The boss is ordering some more parts to replace, you know, because this is the second one of these I did this week, which is why I need a video so that I'm not the only one who knows how to do this. But yes, so that's a rack. This rack is for the QSS 3411, the same racks they use in the QSS 3410 and a bunch of other Noritsu type parts. But this one was rack number 8, one of the stabilizer racks. But those parts are the exact same in all of the racks across the board. The worm gear that turns all of the rollers, which you can see now is working great. That spins perfectly and smoothly, no skipping. I can be just a little mean with it back and forth quick to make sure it doesn't jump any teeth. Yeah, it's working good. So we're gonna go ahead and get everything hooked up and start rolling.